A Frankfurt coin dealer's 5 sons conquered Europe without firing a shot. No armies, no thrones, just ledgers, bonds, and a secret weapon, sovereign debt. By 1850, they controlled more wealth than every European royal family combined. Their playbook: finance both sides of every war, monopolize money creation, make governments perpetual debtors, didn't vanish with the gold standard. It evolved into the Federal Reserve, the ECB, the IMF, the mortgage crushing you, the national debt draining your taxes, the interest rates strangling your paycheck, all designed 250 years ago. You're living inside their architecture. And once you see it, you'll never unsee it. February 1744. A baby boy enters the world on Frankfurt's Judengasse, Jew Street, where an entire community lives trapped behind gates, no land ownership, no guild access, just one permitted trade: money. When Meyer Amschel's father dies, the 13-year-old inherits a coin-dealing table and a crucial insight that will reshape civilization. Whoever manufactures currency controls everything else. Governments, armies, empires, all just shadows cast by money's light. By 1769, young Meyer becomes court agent to Prince William of Hanau, Europe's wealthiest royal, who profits from renting mercenary soldiers like livestock. Meyer doesn't just process William's blood money transactions. He studies the ultimate lesson: war is humanity's most lucrative business model. Not because of weapons, but because of what war creates: desperate governments willing to pay any interest rate for credit. This revelation becomes his family's North Star for the next 2 centuries. Meyer's masterstroke wasn't building one bank, it was building 5 simultaneously. In the early 1800s, he dispatches his sons like chess pieces across Europe's power centers. Amschel anchors Frankfurt. Salomon plants roots in Vienna. Nathan conquers London. Karl secures Naples. James dominates Paris. 1 bloodline, 5 thrones, 0 competition between them. This distributed empire becomes virtually unregulated. Each brother appears as a loyal local banker serving his adopted nation's elite. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, all 5 share intelligence, synchronize strategy, and shuttle capital across borders faster than any government courier. They've invented something unprecedented: a transnational financial nervous system with 5 brains sharing 1 consciousness. When war erupts, and war always erupts, they possess what no king, general, or merchant can match: real-time information flow across enemy lines and the credit network to capitalize on it instantly. The Napoleonic Wars become the Rothschild's laboratory for a revolutionary business model: fund all combatants simultaneously. France needs capital. James Rothschild in Paris provides it. Britain requires credit. Nathan in London delivers. Austria runs dry. Salomon in Vienna opens the vault. They've cracked the code that eludes every other financier. In war, choosing sides is amateur hour. Professional banking means becoming indispensable to everyone. Here's their genius logistics. When Britain must pay troops fighting across the continent but can't ship gold through enemy blockades, Nathan extends credit in London while his brothers distribute payments in local currencies across Europe. The gold stays stationary. Only ledger entries move. Governments become addicted to this service because modern warfare is impossible without it. The Rothschilds don't care about Napoleon's ideology or British imperialism. They care about one immutable truth: wars conclude, but the debt they generate compounds eternally. June 18th, 1815. Napoleon faces Wellington at Waterloo, and Europe's financial future hangs in the balance. French bonds will either skyrocket or crater. British securities face the same binary fate. Fortunes will evaporate or multiply based on a single day's outcome. Nathan Rothschild possesses an invisible weapon: carrier pigeons and express couriers that outpace governmental intelligence networks. When Wellington triumphs, Nathan learns the outcome hours before London's officials. But instead of the obvious move, buying British bonds, he executes a psychological warfare campaign. He publicly dumps British securities aggressively. Panicked traders interpret this as insider knowledge of British defeat and trigger a selling frenzy. Prices collapse. At rock bottom, Nathan quietly absorbs everything. When official confirmation arrives hours later, British bonds explode upward. Nathan's returns 2,000% in one day. This single trade doesn't just create wealth, it announces a new power structure. The Rothschilds now possess better intelligence than empires. Post-Waterloo Europe discovers a new master, not crowned, but holding the ledger. France owes the Rothschilds. Austria owes them. Prussia owes them. Britain owes them. They've accomplished what Napoleon's Grande Arme couldn't: continental conquest through bonds instead of bullets. Debt creates an elegant control mechanism. Governments drowning in obligations cannot antagonize their creditors. They need debt refinancing. They need fresh loans for infrastructure, for stability, for survival. The Rothschilds become the invisible hand-guiding policy across borders. A king can execute a nobleman, but he cannot execute his banker, not when that banker holds the kingdom's financial lifeline. Most historians obsess over military campaigns and diplomatic treaties. They miss the real story unfolding in counting houses and bond markets. The Rothschilds haven't just financed Europe's reconstruction, they've architected a system where nations are permanently shackled to interest payments. Visible empires rise and fall. The invisible empire of sovereign debt simply compounds. The Rothschilds realize lending existing money is lucrative, but controlling money's creation is godlike. England's Bank of England, established 1694, provides the blueprint, a private institution with governmental charter to manufacture currency from nothing, then loan it to the state at interest. The mathematics guarantee perpetual profit. Governments can never escape, because interest exceeds principal forever. Nathan becomes a major Bank of England shareholder. James infiltrates France's central bank. Salomon establishes Austrian banking relationships. Karl finances Neapolitan monetary institutions. The pattern repeats. Seize or create the entity with monopoly on currency creation, not the government itself. Governments borrow, banks create. Therein lies infinite power. Fast forward to 2025. Your Federal Reserve, born 1913, is this exact model. A private bank with government monopoly, creating dollars from thin air, lending to Washington at interest. The European Central Bank, Bank of Japan, Bank of England, all replicate the Rothschild playbook from 2 centuries ago. You're living inside their blueprint. Most dynasties crumble by generation 3. The builder creates, the inheritor maintains, the grandchild destroys. The Rothschilds engineer a different destiny through 3 mechanisms that make wealth destruction impossible. First, strategic intermarriage. Rothschild sons marry Rothschild cousins for over a century. Nathan's children wed Salomon's. Karl's daughters marry James's sons. Zero wealth dilution to outsiders. The fortune stays trapped inside bloodline boundaries. Second, ironclad trusts. Myers 1812 will mandates only male heirs control banks, all wealth held collectively in trusts, and zero public disclosure ever. Governments cannot tax invisible wealth. Heirs cannot squander assets they don't individually control. Third, vertical integration beyond banking. They finance railroads, then own the railroads. They fund mining operations, then control the mines. By century's end, they're financing half of global railroad construction while owning stakes in De Beers diamonds, Rio Tinto mining, and the Suez Canal. Money generates assets, generates more money, perpetually. Here's how this system bleeds you dry in 2025. Your government runs deficits and issues bonds. The central bank purchases these bonds by conjuring new currency. Now your government owes the bond amount plus interest. Where does interest payment money originate? Your paycheck. You labor. You earn. You're taxed. A portion of those taxes doesn't fund roads, schools, or defense. It services interest on money created from absolute nothingness by central banks using the Rothschild architecture. America's national debt, $36 trillion. Annual interest payments, $1.2 trillion and accelerating. That exceeds the entire defense budget. This $1.2 trillion doesn't build infrastructure or cure diseases. It flows to bondholders, central banks, institutional investors, and banking dynasties holding sovereign debt since Napoleon's era. The system's elegance: governments borrow infinitely, interest compounds infinitely, you pay infinitely. Elections change faces. The debt structure remains eternal. You're not a citizen. You're a debt servant funding a 250-year-old extraction mechanism. Post-1800s, the Rothschilds execute their most brilliant maneuver, vanishing from public consciousness while remaining embedded in power's skeleton. They stop publishing wealth estimates. They remove their name from building facades. Rockefellers and Morgans become finance's public faces, while Rothschilds become shareholders, advisors, silent partners, never the visible CEO. Estimating current Rothschild wealth? Impossible by design. Public guesses range from $400 billion to $2 trillion, but the real figure is deliberately unknowable. Family banks stay private. Trusts hide offshore. Holdings fragment across hundreds of entities in dozens of jurisdictions. Visible wealth attracts regulation, taxation, and guillotines. Invisible wealth compounds silently across centuries. Rothschild & Co. still operates from Paris, one of Earth's largest independent financial advisory groups. They counsel governments on privatization, debt restructuring, and monetary policy. No headlines, no attention. Just quiet indispensability at the highest levels of European central bank policy, IMF programs, and sovereign debt negotiations. Here's the terrifying truth. The system no longer needs Rothschild supervision. It's become self-perpetuating, embedded in every nation's financial DNA. Central banks exist everywhere. Sovereign debt foundations support every government. Interest-bearing currency is universal reality. The Rothschilds built the architecture, but now the architecture operates independently. You don't need Rothschild family members running the Federal Reserve for it to function exactly as designed in 1815. The methodology is the legacy: central banking, sovereign debt, war finance, generational wealth structures. BlackRock and Vanguard manage $20 trillion combined. They're the modern Rothschilds. Not by genetics, but by replicating the method: distributed power with centralized control, invisible ownership, multi-generational structures embedded so deeply that regulation becomes impossible. Larry Fink operates Nathan Rothschild's playbook perfectly. He doesn't own everything, just becomes the indispensable advisor, creditor, and middleman. The family taught the model. The system perfected and replicated it globally. You cannot escape this architecture. Every dollar in your wallet exists because a central bank created it. Every tax payment services debt generated by this system. Every interest charge flows into financial structures the Rothschilds engineered 250 years ago. You are living inside their blueprint, whether you acknowledge it or not. But here's your power. Awareness changes everything. Most people sleepwalk through life never questioning why they're perpetually in debt, while bankers compound wealth eternally. You now see the machinery. You understand that central banking isn't natural law, it's manufactured design. So what's your move? Accept the system and use its tools? Resist through Bitcoin and fiscal activism? Or position yourself as creditor instead of debtor? Your choice matters less than this. You finally see the game board. If this opened your eyes to financial architecture controlling civilization, subscribe now. Because understanding the system isn't academic theory, it's survival intelligence. The machinery runs whether you comprehend it or not. Comprehension is your only advantage.